The best way to learn about sailing and cruising and going on boats? Well, that's pretty easy. You go on other people's boats. Hi, I'm Nika Waters, and welcome to the Boat Galley podcast. I'm sharing a couple of reasons why going on other people's boats can be a fantastic way to learn an awful lot about what you may or may not want in a boat. Today's episode of the Boat Galley podcast is sponsored by Northwest Explorations. Are you looking for a one-stop shop for all of your Pacific Northwest cruising needs? Northwest Explorations offers bareboat charters, guided flotillas, powerboat training, service, detailing, brokerage. They're located on the Washington coast and Vancouver Island, and you're covered no matter which side of the border you're on. Visit nwexplorations.com to learn more. I don't know about you, but the Pacific Northwest is one place that sounds pretty amazing. Given that our boat is on the East Coast and we're talking about heading to the Caribbean and not really taking it around and through and up the West Coast, if I am going to cruise in the Pacific Northwest, it's going to have to be on somebody else's boat. That's kind of what the Annapolis Boat Show and boat shows in general are all about, right? You go and you check out other people's boats. Okay, the other people's boats, it might belong to a company because they're selling a brand new boat. But the idea of boat shows is you go walking on boats and you check things out. You're testing it. You're trying to see if it might be something that you might like. And while I've talked to a number of people who decline to go to boat shows because they're worried that when they walk on boats, it's going to make them feel bad about the boat that they already have, I will argue that sometimes even going on those big boats doesn't make you feel sad for having a small boat. We had this happen when we were in Annapolis. We wandered around, walked on a few boats. Most of them are interesting. They're certainly bigger than what we've got on Calypso. They are always good. I don't care what boat it is. I always learn something new when I walk onto a boat, even if it's a boat that I have no interest in and it doesn't appeal to me aesthetically or in any other way. But it is a really rare, in fact, I can't remember walking onto a boat where I haven't seen something, even if it's tiny, said, wow, that's a cool idea, and tried to figure out how I might be able to replicate it on my boat. There are a number of things we have on Calypso that we have because we saw them on somebody else's boat. And maybe it was somebody else's 50-footer and we're on a 28-footer, but we could adapt a small idea to make our life on board just a little bit better. We're not looking for a bigger boat. And then, of course, you sometimes always think you are. At 28 feet, she's a little small. There are some things that might be nice to have. And when we were walking on some boats at the boat show, one of the ones that we walked on was a Cigar 16, which is an aluminum boat built by a company called Alubat, a French company called Alubat, that also makes the Ovnis, which is one of Jeremy's kind of sort of dream boats. He loves the Ovnis and their centerboard configuration. So when the guy who owns the boat talked to us for a little bit and offered to take us sailing, we kind of jumped at the chance. Now, the Cigar, this one is a 16-meter boat, so 54-footer. And we made sure that the guy knew we're not in the market for it. His boat was for sale, but we weren't in the process of certainly not looking to buy a boat like that. And we initially, when I thought about going for a sail after the initial, wow, of course, it'd be super fun to go on somebody else's big boat and go for a sail. And I was worried. I was worried that we might go for a sail and then come back and look at our boat and say, oh my goodness, we really need to find a bigger boat. There was a little bit of that in the back of my mind, even though I know that our budget is perfect for the boat that we have right now. And we had a glorious afternoon sailing. We sailed out of Annapolis, we went north under the Bay Bridge and came back down. And yes, that 54-footer was way bigger than Calypso. And while there were aspects of it being bigger that we really enjoyed, we did not come back talking about how much we wanted something bigger. On the contrary, spending the afternoon sailing on the Cigar made us very much appreciate what we have. Yes, the boat sails smoothly. It was really fun to be up super high, standing on the back deck and watching the wake bubble along behind us. We've got a tiller on Calypso, so sailing with a wheel with 2 fingers, because it was pretty well balanced, was kind of awesome. But one of the things that was pretty different that we noticed right off the bat, and have talked about it a couple of times since then, is just how much work it is to take that boat out. The mast is maybe 80 feet in the air, so almost twice as high as Calypso's. And when you're hauling up a sail, that's pretty endless when you're doing it by hand. Every single one of the winches on that boat was electric, and you really needed to make sure you used the electric winches. The boom was so high off the deck, and the stack pack was so far up that actually when we were bringing down the mainsail, David, the owner, who's taller than Jeremy, who is 6'3", David had to stand up high on the winches that were on the side of the mast and use an extended boat hook to gaff the top of the head of the sail to haul it down. That's a lot of work. That would be a hard boat to take out and go by yourself. There wasn't a whole lot of wind when we were out, and Jeremy didn't feel like the boat was being sailed as well as it could have been, but the highest boat speed that we saw was 9 knots. Well, the highest boat speed that we get on Calypso is like 7.5. We've seen some 8s and a little bit over, but 9 knots wasn't a huge difference in boat speed versus what we're used to. And it really was a total treat to go sailing on a boat that was so different than ours is. But it was also a pretty cool thing to go on the boat and realize that we still prefer our own boat. I will still say that going on other people's boats, whether you're sailing or walking on them, it's a great way to test things out, to learn, to try, to investigate, to explore. I highly recommend going on other people's boats. I will also say, give yourself the opportunity to fall in love with your own boat by walking on other people's boats, because sometimes that's just what happens. I can't wait to share an anchorage with you, and we can get on each other's boats and be excited by what we see and what we have on our own boats. Thank you so much for listening to the Boat Galley podcast. We love hearing from our listeners. We love it if you leave us a review, and we love it especially when you subscribe and you share us with your friends. Have the most fantastic week.